The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Tanya, and I'm the marketing manager over here at Struxoft Solutions, part of the Great Tech Group. Just for those of you who are new with us today, our star solution MWF, which stands for Metal Wood Framer, is our Revit-based BIM framing solution that allows users to automate Revit walls, floors, ceilings, and trusses in light-gauge steel and also in wood. So a couple of weeks ago, we did a webinar on how to split wall panels in MWF. However, we didn't touch on how to split floors in MWF. So today, that's exactly what our technician, Alex, will show. So this includes splitting floors using the MWF Floor Cutter, using the split panel tool in MWF, and also rotating the floor direction. Just before we get going, I'd like to remind everyone that at the end of the webinar, and by the way, this webinar should be a quick one, approximately 15 to 20 minutes, we'll be taking a couple of live questions. In order to be selected, please press the raise hand button on the dashboard. Just please also make sure that your mic is working correctly. If you'd prefer, you can ask questions throughout the webinar in the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard. You'll be able to type them in there. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to hand off to Alex now.
Thank you, Tanya. Welcome everybody to this week's webinar. As Tanya mentioned, we're going to be looking at or somebody else on your team where they just put in a floor to cover the entirety of your plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and mimic this a bit. Okay, so you receive a project, and then they've gone ahead and placed a floor just by selecting the outer walls, for example. Oops, and go all the way to the end here. That's unconnected. That's okay. For the example, this will be fine. So here you go. I have a huge floor basically, but this is not going to work for anyone who's trying to create panels for floors using the MWF system. We're going to want to create floor panels that are a lot smaller. So we're going to go ahead now and look at a couple of different methods to split this up. So the first one is going to be using our floor cutter tool right here. So I'm just going to let the mouse sit there. Okay, there we go. So create multiple floor elements by cutting the floor along the selected model lines. So I'm going to be using model lines to decide where my splits are going to happen. Also, just to be mindful that curves and shapes formed by multiple model lines are not supported. So you can see that in the little text right here. So just make sure that you're using straight lines. And as it mentions at the end, these lines need to go through the floor's profile. So make sure that they extend either beyond the floor or right to the edge. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now. So we're going to be splitting this one here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my model lines. I'm going to place one somewhere here. Grab it and extend it across my project. And then I'm going to go ahead and just copy this one over. Let's get in here. Perfect. And then I could have mirrored this one to the center to land here, but like I said, my floor didn't pick up the rest of this project for some reason right now. So we're just going to work on this side. I also want to split it here in the middle. So we're going to go ahead, go down here, drop my model line there, and drag it across. Okay, so I have a couple model lines now that I can go off of. Now, what this is going to allow us to do is, as you see here, I have one full floor. Now, using the floor cutter, it's going to separate these floors into 6 different Revit floors. So you have the ability to retain this original floor, but in our case, it would be a better idea to just get rid of it and just save the smaller floors, because that's what we're going to be using to create your floor framing afterwards. So you'll see here, first of all, we got to pick our model lines plus the floor. and then we can use the floor cutter. So this is going to run, then we're going to get a little dialog box basically that's going to ask us, what do you want to transform these floor types into? So I'm going to make them just a generic 12-inch. Once this is created, this is what I was talking about right here. You can delete the original floor, or if you just hit OK, it would actually retain this, but it could be a little dangerous if you're not careful, that you may end up picking this big one and generating a bunch of joists for one very large panel. So I'm going to check this, hit OK. Now it's going to cut, and we now have 6 different floors. And if I hide this, we'll see that beneath it, we no longer have that big one. Okay. So this is first method, really easy. Like I said, you just have to make sure that you're putting the model lines in the right location. Now, this floor here, I could also go ahead and drop some more marker lines, okay, because we have a limit of how big our floor panels can be. So for example, I can drop this here. And let's just say from here to here, and from here to here. Okay, so then I can come here and do the same process. Okay, we're going to separate our unit into something a little bit better for our floor panels. Let's go back to this and do floor cutters. So this is going to be the first method. Once this is done, now you can pick your 6 floors that we're going to have for this unit and go to create and create your MWF floor panels. Okay, this is fine. Remove this. Okay, so then I can grab these and hit create, and then we would be jumping into the MWF portion now, where we can actually put in some joists and rim boards and everything. So this is method 1. I'm going to use this one here for the next method. So this is going to be using, under the panels drop-down menu, we have split panel. I'm just going to leave my mouse there for a second again. So in order to split a panel in 2, you have to select 2 nodes. If the split is not straight between the 2 nodes, we need to make sure to align our nodes so that it's a straight line once again. Nodes, for anybody who's not accustomed to creating floors, I'll show you in a second what they are. So first thing I'm going to do is actually just create a floor. We're gonna use the steel portion. So sorry, light gauge right here. So you could do frame now, which it would actually populate your floor panel with the joists, the rim boards, the end joists. But until I'm done splitting, I don't really need to see the framing. So I just want to create the shell and get our information inside of this floor. So now we'll see here we have the little gizmo, which allows you to know your span is running this way. Your joists are going to be running from the left to the right. Now, we'll get to it later on, but you can use this basically to decide in what direction your joists are going to be running and what direction the span's running, so we can rotate this. Yeah, so now I have my floor. You'll see up here, we have these boundary nodes. So these little cone-shaped models. So if I want to just actually bring this up in a 3D view, okay, you'll see this is what they look like. Okay, so we need to place a couple more of these in order to split the panel. So we're going to go back here. And then under place nodes, I'm going to select my floor real quick, do my place nodes. That's going to allow me to drop a couple more of these nodes where I need my splits to be. So I actually have the lines from the other one already created. I'm kind of going to use that as a reference real quick. So somewhere around here, And then we want to do our best to keep this lined up across for when we split. Now, if you don't manage to get it perfectly, that's fine. We're going to go in here and align these regardless. Okay. And then maybe I want something from top to bottom also. I'll go from there, somewhere down here. I'm not even going to look because I'm going to fix it. Okay. So now we have all of these. So we're just going to go into our modify section here. We're going to align. You'll see when you zoom in, you get two different lines on the node. So I'm trying to line this or this one here. So it's just off by a little bit. I'm going to do the same here. This, and then the top and bottom one. Now we're aligning this line to this. All right, so everything is set up to go now. Hit escape. Now what I can do is go back under my tools, under panel, and I can do split panel. So I'm going to select this. It's going to ask you to basically pick your first and secondary node, and the tool stays active. So after you've placed all of your nodes, you can keep going through with the tool. So we'll notice here at the bottom, pick first boundary node. So I'm going to say this one. Pick secondary boundary node. I'm going to pick this one. Now it's going to split, and it's going to create two MWF floor panels for us. So at this point here, we can actually create these two panels and regenerate them and get our framing. This, however, is going to retain the floor from Revit. It's not separating it like we did with the floor cutter into different Revit floors. This is just one big shell, okay? As we can see, my tool is still active, so I'm going to just finish up splitting the rest. And then we're going to run into a little issue here. So I want it to split from top to bottom also, but it's going to let us know that we need two boundary nodes of the same panel. So I can't just hit this and the bottom one, put a line, and then create three new ones. Yeah, so I'm going to have to go back into my tool and place nodes in these two directions, in these two locations right here and right here. Oops. Just running a little slow. Grab this. I have to pick my panel before I did it. Okay, and now I should be good to actually start placing this. So once again, I don't want one roughly here and one roughly here, and then we're going to align them. With this, and then this one with this one. Okay, and now I can split these once again. Okay, so once everything is split, then we should have about 6 floor panels once again using the nodes. Now, again, the floors are already created. So at this point, as I mentioned, we can select them and then regenerate. And just finish this, and then the last one down here. All right, so we got our 6 floor panels. So now if I wanted, I can just grab all of these here and hit the regenerate tool. Okay, now this is because we've already created the information tied to our floor system when we did create the first time. We just didn't want it to frame. These all have their information tied to them already from the properties. We're going to get to see that in just a second when it pops up. Now, I'm not going to spend time basically setting up the floors. You can always go on our YouTube page if you're looking for how to do that. We have webinars on basically the rest of the floor tools, how to create them, how to manipulate, your joists, your end studs, and different rules that are associated to the floor system. For today, we were just going to focus on this splitting. Okay, so this is good. Now I'm going to grab my floor so that we can actually see the system created. And I'm going to hide it, the Revit floor, so we can kind of just see the studs. The joists. Okay. So now this is all created. Okay, so while I'm in here, what I wanted to say before was that you'll notice here the green arrow, as I mentioned, is letting us know that we're starting from the left side here. So this should be, so we have a rim board with the joists running in this direction. And then our span is going from the bottom of this panel here towards the top. So if I look at my joist number, this is 2, it should be 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. So what I can do now is take this and actually rotate it. Let me just go in here, it'll be a little bit easier. I'm gonna hit the rotate tool. Oops. Okay, so now we've changed this. So now my joist will be running in another direction. So I'm going to grab this and they should be running, let's say from the bottom here towards the top. I'm just going to go and regenerate. Okay. So now we'll see the direction switch. Okay, and then the span again is what we're looking at with the red arrow. So this should be joist 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there's a quick way. You can always do this also in the properties of your panel. So if I go into my properties, at the beginning, the first page you're going to see, you're going to get direction. So you can always input, an offset, a direction, basically where you want to go. But if not, rotating this gizmo that we put in there is the easiest way, basically to get the direction of your joist. Okay, so you got your reference points, the elevation alignment layer, name here, so we can change the floor panel name from this location. Okay, and as I mentioned before, if you want to know how to set up your floors, it'd be again in these properties is where you can come in to these different properties and change what families are being used, what's the layout for your joists, your end tracks and such. All right, so we're going to get out of this now. There's 2 more tools I want to show you that is associated kind of with the split. One is to merge these back together. So maybe, you create floor panels, but realize that you have room for bigger panels on your truck, for example. So what we can actually do under here, where it says merge panel, it's going to ask us to pick which panel we want to retain and then which one is going to be added to it. So I'm just going to let it rotate. Now we're going to look at the bottom left of the screen, just in case we're not sure what's going on. We see here, pick the main panel. So let's say I'm going to keep this panel, pick the secondary panel, this one, and it's going to come and merge them back into one. And we kept the floor panel 4 name, which can always be changed because now we lost, let's say, number 2. So we could always just go and switch this up afterwards in the properties. All right. So that's for merging panels back together. And the last thing is going to be this joist slapping. So I'm going to pick these 2 here at the bottom. Let me just go in 3D because it may be a little bit easier to see. Actually, I should just regenerate this guy. And back to the way it was before. Perfect. Okay. So now we see that the connection here between them, we got my rim here and then the other rim for the next panel right here. Okay, our rim tracks. So now what we're going to do is actually remove these and just have the joists overlap. So I'm going to pick the 2 panels in question. I'm going to go under the tools and we have right here joist slapping. So we're going to select joist slapping. It's going to ask us basically how big is the overlap going to be. So I'm going to place something along the lines of 3 inches. So here they're asking us, whoops, if you look at the bottom left, select the anchor panel. It's going to be this one. And then select the secondary panel and pick this one. And here's my joist slapping setup. So like I said, we'll put 3 inch. We can flip the joists for them to be back to back, which in this case would make sense, I think. And then I'm going to hit OK. It's actually going to regenerate my panels for me, so I don't need to reselect them and regenerate. The tool automatically has that going right away. So let me just pick one of these. Okay, so we'll see the rim tracks are now gone, and now my joists should be back to back. Okay, and they're overlapping. Okay, so this is another use of the split line tool. So because our panels have been split, it allows us to actually use this kind of a connection between our two floor panels. All right, let me just go back here in the top view and just make sure we didn't forget anything. So we have the floor cutter, which creates multiple floors, Revit floors. And then, as I said before, now we can grab all these and create our panels. And the other method that we have is keeping the one floor, creating it, and then using our little boundary nodes here to select where we want to split our panels, and then using, right here, using the tools under the panel drop-down menu, you'll be able to split, merge, and use the joist lapping tool. So on that note, if you guys have any questions, I'm just going to let Tanya take over from at this point, and see if anybody wants to raise their hand or anything.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. As he just mentioned, we'd like to open the floor up to you guys if you have any questions. So if you'd like to pose a question live, please raise your hand now by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel. Again, just please make sure that your audio is working correctly. And just while we wait for any questions to come through, I'd just like to remind everyone that the recording of the presentation will be sent through tomorrow. As always, please feel free to share the recording with any colleagues. And if you're looking for the recording a little earlier, you can typically find it at the end of the day today across our social media channels. All right, I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds to see if anything comes through. All right, well, that looks like it's a wrap for today. If there are any follow-up questions after the session has been closed, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact details will be provided along with the recording tomorrow. As well as if you'd like to set up a one-on-one demonstration, we'd be happy to get that set up for you. All right, we'll now be ending the webinar. I just want to say a big thank you to Alex and also thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Have a great day.